We had a lot of that last night. Thunder struck. Job. Murphy doing into the wee hours. Mason. Right, Chris, he bailed on us. I was up making the calls. Nobody called Chris. Chris goes, when did you guys call me?
Dan actually participated this time. It was like right in his window of being awake.
It was his window of awakeness, man. That's why he participated. He happened to be here when it all happened. No, Dan did a great job. It was I'll tell you what, it was a hell of a night. And by the sounds of it, we're going to get a lot more opportunity to have some rain. And the flooding is the thing at this moment in time, getting still some flash flood warnings. But having the continuous alarms and sirens and stuff going off, especially for the kids who've never – Charlie slept through it. Charlie's like, what's that? And we're like, and turn the alarm on. She went right back to bed. But it's a weird thing, too. And I was telling Chris, it's an odd thing where it tells you go seek shelter, yet your first instinct is go look outside the window. What am I seeking shelter from? What exactly? Because you want to see it, right? And you want to see the funnel and the whole night. And there's none of that. But it was a night, man. It was a night. And we expect it to be that way. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but look at the amount of rain we've got. Nashville, 3 to 5 inches. Some other surrounding areas anywhere between 5 to 7. And I think with Centerville got like 4 inches in like a 90-minute period. And I don't care how good your drainage is. That's tough. That's tough to handle. So were you awoken last night, young Bell?
Yeah, actually, I was awoken by the tornado siren going off about 3:30. And I got up and checked into the webpage, 997wtn.com, and was watching you guys do all the reporting on the weather.
It was, we were having, you asked me, like, were you in a car? I said, no, because Dan's all, is it bad? He's all, hey, go outside. Then he's telling Mason, you guys go outside and take a look. Can you guys hear the alarms?
If you see a funnel cloud, run measure it.
That's it. Yeah, this is the exact opposite. It's going to be counterintuitive, but run at it and take a photo. What I was intrigued by is telling Bella, I woke up at like 1:30, and after the umpteenth thing went off, and I'm like, I'm not going back to sleep. Because I came and hung out with Matt right after the show last night. We were here for a couple hours, and we're like, well, it's going to be a while. So I went home, and I watched some Adolescence. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I know Chris was talking about it. And then from there, I went to sleep, and I got about 2 hours of sleep before the alarm started going off, and I wasn't going to sleep. And I thought I was going to check Twitter to see if we were live and what was going on. But on accident, I hit TikTok, and there was a guy from Cleveland, Ohio, that it was right across from Nissan Stadium. And he was there was lines of, like, you could see the swirl, right, the rotation, and it start to come down, and then it would dissipate. But it was, and he's like, we just don't have this. It's like where I'm from, we don't have this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it was something new. And the kids, they didn't know whether to be excited or scared. Because, and like, where do we go? We're in an apartment. We don't have a basement. I'm like, actually, we do have a basement. We're good. So it was, I expect a little bit more of that tonight. And Ann just says, I've been listening since 3 a.m. Thank you so much, Ann. Appreciate that. We will be here again tonight, if need be, or throughout the day. I know there was another tornado warning a little while ago, but I don't. It looks like it's going to be nasty for 4 days, but another nasty one tonight. Are you in tonight? Or are we going to, or Mason again?
I don't know, to be honest. We haven't had that discussion yet. I think Paul might be working on it. Our boss is putting the schedule together.
It was funny. Weber was here with us. We're talking. Weber's like, all right, I'm going to hit it. So Mason should be here in a little while. If anything happens, one of you guys just go in there and turn on the button, and you should be good to go. I'm like, okay, we got this. So 4 different states, tornadoes. I know there was that little city in Arkansas, I think that's what it's called, or it was just smushed. But it was a weird line of storms that it was just, the whole thing was interesting. It was thin, and then it just stalled. And it was like a rotate. It was a rinse and repeat. It was rotate. It was rinse and repeat, in and around Belmead and Brentwood and several other places. So hopefully tonight it'll be rainy, but not like it was last night, because I don't get enough sleep as is, and I was kind of punch drunk. I was like, there. I get that way, man, because I like to take a nap for like an hour during the day, and if I get 2 or 3 at night, but I didn't get any of that because my son's here, so I'm staying up way later than I normally would. Kind of threw off the way I do stuff, and then I had to tell Dan at like 5 this morning, like, dude, I gotta go do my show now. He's like, okay, because I also have a show besides this, and I have to go talk about something that's not the weather.
Yeah.
So luckily there was stuff to talk about. It's called Tariffs. I don't know. Did you feel liberated? Anybody?
I felt very liberated. I felt very liberated from my my money.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's coming back, man. It's coming back. You know what? I don't know what's going to happen with this. I keep telling. I was talking to a couple of my buddies. One of them who is a large fund manager, and he is over in Europe. And I said, "Do you know what's going to happen?" And his answer was, "No idea." He goes, "Here's the one thing that Europe that they don't really import." They don't really, like, as far as us, they get cars and stuff. We're not getting any of their stuff. So we've got a better handle in there. They're worried about jeans and Harley Davidsons and stuff. What we've hit them with is going to be much, much harder on them. The question is, are they going to come together and try to say, screw it, we're going to try to ride this thing out. It's an experiment, and it's not just an experiment. And as I tried to explain to a couple of people, because I did a couple of hits on other stations today, it's not just an experiment on whether or not these things are going to work and pan out over time, because we're a very fickle bunch. We're a bunch that is a TikTok society. We want our stuff fast, and we want it cheap, and we need it quick. And that's part of the issue. This is as much a experiment in can we get the negotiated deals that we want in certain places? But it's also on us, because we are a nation that loves to consume, right? We need Ozempic. Is Trump the Ozempic for us to try to get off the consumption bus that we've been on?
That's a pretty good comparison.
Because that's what it is. You're not just trying to even out the playing field in certain areas, right? You're not just trying to do that. You're not trying to level the playing fields in trade in certain areas. You're also trying to really get us off cheap goods. So, and to do that, that takes a lot, because we've been conditioned. If you're 60, right, and you're my age, you're 54, and stuff, you remember there was manufacturing back in the day. You remember Buy America, Made in America. You remember those kind of things. If you're in your 30s, right, 35 down to my kid's age, you only know certain things. And if you're in your 20s, my God, you only know the internet and quick, cheap deals. Those things are long gone, those other things. Those are relics. And because we become a consumption-based, we have to figure out, how do we have an intervention? It's like one of those things where, did Trump just sit down with us on a couch and just read us something like, look, I really like you. I think you guys are good. I love you. You can do better. You really can. We can be a better group. I loved you when you used to make stuff, but now all you do is consume, and we want the old you back. So it's a mindset for a whole nation on top of that.
The nuts and bolts are really clear. A new minimum tariff of 10%, reciprocal tariffs on the Chinese of 34%, the EU 20%, the Japanese 24%. These are very large numbers in trade terms, horrific numbers. But what this is really going to is the US changing the terms of trade, saying to the rest of the world, we're no longer doing business like we used to. And the rest of the world has now got a really big decision. Do we say we're going to fight back? Or do they say, let's start negotiating and finding a common ground? Consumers are going to pay more. Importers won't know what to charge. Factories will somehow not know what to do. This is one extraordinary mess that's going to take many weeks, months, if not years, to sort out. And by and large, there's no guarantee this is going to be successful, because everybody I've spoken to in the trade business says this is a vast experiment of unknown proportions where the consequences are simply unknown.
And they're unknown. And that's the big thing. It's unknown. It's unknown in a lot of ways, because in an intervention, right? Like, so you go and you have if you've ever been to an intervention, they're not very fun, by the way. Not a great place to do magic. But if somebody goes into rehab, politics of your life it doesn't play into whether or not they stay in rehab. Meaning, if we're trying to really kick all these cheap goods, get stuff made here to a certain extent, and there's no guarantee that jobs are coming back with this. If automation can help with building things and keeping a price competitive still, where we like it, because we always shop price. So there's no guarantee of that. So the reality is, if things start to go south, it's nobody goes, hey, we got to break Jim out and reverse his whole intervention and get him out of, because my politics aren't going very well, and my I may not get reelected, and so he's got to go back on the drugs. Like, that doesn't happen during interventions. What? I was just starting to get well. Sorry, man. But I don't know. Here's the thing: the unknown is who blinks first. The unknown is, and I'm not just talking about America, like the trade side of it and tariffs. I'm also talking about Americans who may start to turn, and next thing you know, they see if the stock market continues to struggle and people start getting laid off and the noise starts to grow politically. Because being the right thing to do, and Trump's got a lot more sway because he's not running for re-election, but he does have to worry that if they end up getting, this blamed on them if things don't work out immediately the way they want, that the next thing you know, they lose in the midterms, and then Trump realizes, well, he's not running for re-election. He's going to have 2 years of hell. So a lot plays into this, but somebody's going to blink first. We'll find out who it is. It's going to be interesting for sure. I want it to work. I love American-made stuff. We all do. But, what is everybody's threshold for if things get a little bit more expensive and a little bit more uncomfortable at a time when things are already still expensive and still uncomfortable? A lot of stuff to get to today. More on this. We're going to talk a little bit about adolescence. Obviously, we got the weather updates throughout the day, and there's plenty of them. And get ready for more tonight. It is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Raycon, best earbuds around. Absolutely incredible. I love my Raycons. I wear them all the time. And, the last couple of days with all the stuff going on, the beauty of my Raycons is I'm working on video and I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. Being able to connect to two things at once with multi-connectivity is incredible. Active noise cancellation and quick charging function, which is awesome. You get 8 hours of talk time and 32 hours of battery life. But when get to the point where it starts to go and you're like, oh, I got to plug it in, every 10 minutes, you get 90 minutes of playtime, which is incredible. Save 20% now. Get a 30-day happiness guarantee. Go to buyraycon.com/Chad now to save big. The best earbuds around. Tons of colors to choose from. They've got a lot of other stuff on their website. But check out the everyday earbuds, the ones I swear by. Buyraycon.com/Chad. Buyraycon.com/Chad. Man, I tell you what, I hope you got everything ready for, I don't know, the summer. Warm, sticky, nasty outside because you're going to need some air. And what about the plumbing with all this chaos out there? Busy Bee is ready and has you ready to roll. Why don't you join the Beehive Club? It's simple and easy to do, and just 2 inspections that come out pays for itself all the time. But on top of that, you get everything from Busy Bee, from discounts to top service all the time when you're part of the Beehive Club. And it's just it's a smart thing to do. And I love the fact that, yes, you're pushed up to the front of the line when things go a little bit south, especially in times like these where you never know with all the chaos going on. So why don't you do this? Join the Beehive Club today and put yourself in a little ease of mind that you got yourself covered for your HVAC needs and your plumbing needs. Call them now, 775-7833, 775-7833, or check them out online at busybeehvac.com.
Well, as you can imagine, we have got weather updates, we've got traffic updates, flooding updates, stock updates. That's all the top of the news, and it's coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got some of your text messages coming in. One person says, Rand Paul was whining about tariffs and losing seats. His ego had him appear not America first. Well, look, wouldn't it be great if we were all America first? Meaning all America first. Meaning we don't care if the Democrats ran the country and it was best for America, or the Republicans ran it, it was best for them. Wouldn't that be great? The thing is, though, they keep score because it's their jobs. And if they get blamed for it. See, remember, if this does work out the way that hopefully it does, and we don't know how long it could last. That's the other side of this. That's always the wild card with Trump. These things could last a week, a month, 5 years, or 3 years, or who knows. But they're always worried about their jobs because it's their jobs. And they're always worried they're going to get blamed for something. And I can't tell somebody not to be nervous if prices go up. Because I can afford something, I shouldn't say you should be America first. If you're a business that's worried about what's going to happen, I shouldn't say, well, you know what, this is great for America, so just deal with it. Those are real life people that are dealing with these things. And that's the thing we're dealing with here. Because you've got some Democrats out there who are like, you know what, I'm glad that we're doing this, especially with the cars. It's good. Let's bring some manufacturing home. And I've got some Republican and MAGA friends out there who are nervous because of what this might mean for their business and for their jobs, because that's just human nature. I mean, we would love for it to be simple and easy. And yeah, you know what? We're given as good as we get. But part of this is on us as the consumer. We're going to have Billy Baldwin on and Dr. Marbit, Dr. Marbit on. They've got a movie out, Fentanyl, Death Incorporated, and it is about fentanyl and stuff, and he's going to talk about the fact that we're such a small part of the world's population, but our consumption of fentanyl and drugs is massive. Same thing here. We're a small part of the world, but our consumption of goods is huge. We've got an addiction problem to cheap goods, and so there's a lot that goes into this. And it's not just as simple as, well, we're going to tariff them, they're going to tariff us, they'll retaliate, then we'll do this, then we'll all negotiate, and some stuff will go down, and some stuff will be gone. There's going to be more to it than that. And somebody said, well, I always shop quality. That's great. That's fantastic. You know what? You're buying a Rolex, you shop quality. You're buying a Casio, you just want a Casio. If you can only afford a certain thing, you're gonna price check everything. You're going in the Target or Walmart or several other places. The minute you ask, oh, look at this, is really nice. People look on their phone. Can I get it on Amazon for cheaper? I mean, if it was only just about quality, you wouldn't have bids for anything. We, unfortunately, live in that kind of world. And I love the fact that, yes, we have allowed a lot of countries to get away with a lot of stuff. A lot of countries get to enjoy a lot of things, including the love of our F-15s and F-35s and all the other things that protect them in a weird way that allows them to spend money on all kinds of social programs. I'm glad that that's ending. It's time for them to step up. All that being said, this is a long haul thing. And for some people, I think they're nervous about it. Rightly so. I'm sure Trump is, he feels good about it. It's a battle. But there are a lot of other people, including the people like Rand Paul, but a lot of other politicians that we don't know, sight unseen, who quietly are going, I hope this doesn't cost me my seat. And, I want this thing to work too. I would love to see us on a fair playing field. I would love to bring some manufacturing. I'm also not delusional to think that we're going to have giant factories again. People walking around with their metal lunch boxes, Dad's coming over for the factory. That ain't going to happen. It isn't.
We'll open a new factory and Bernie will be standing in front going, they have a right to unionize.
They have the right to unionize. We should unionize it. But to build some of these things, it takes years and years and years. There are some factories that you could get up and running, but so I'm under no illusion of a lot of this manufacturing, but there are things that can come back quickly, including what we saw during COVID, PPEs, pharmaceuticals, the chip manufacturing. Even now with the chip manufacturing, like the Taiwanese semiconductor, as they start to build all of those chips, those things still aren't ready. They've delayed it longer because it takes a long time to ramp up, to build, and then to actually employ. And that's as much about it. Let's be real. If it's about defense, we'll spend the hell out of it, as we all know. A lot of stuff still to get to today. More on what's going on in the weather outside. It's frightful. Just let you guys know. And the mood inside right now is currently delightful. Hit us up on the old Twitter, at Chad Benson Show. You can hit us up on our Twitter. Check us out on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, right? Or X, or whatever the hell it's called today.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. It is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It's 12:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you the official weather forecast here in a moment, but I can tell you that the National Weather Service here in Nashville has issued a flash flood warning for southeastern Cheatham County as well as all of Davidson County, southeastern Dixon County, northeastern Hickman County, north central Murray County, northwestern Rutherford County, as well as southern Sumner County, Williamson County here in Middle Tennessee, and western Wilson County. And again, this flash flood warning currently in effect until 2:45 this afternoon. And officials here in the area still urge residents, we got to stay on top of this weather. We got to be weather aware. More heavy rains and storms are moving through the area. Currently up in the Clarksville area, as well as up north of the border there in southern Kentucky, Waverly, Tennessee, also seeing some pretty significant storms right now. According to the Nashville Office of Emergency Management, heavy rain and flooding quickly becoming the main threat here in Davidson County all the way through the weekend. Sadly, 5 people thus far have been confirmed killed in the severe storms that blew through the area overnight. The weather-related deaths were reported in, one in McNairy County, another in Obion, another in Hardeman County, and 2 fatalities in Fayette County. And a number of media outlets reporting that a person was struck by lightning here in Nashville in the Green Hills area. They were at the Hilton on Cleghorn Avenue, and the victim, they were outside when they were hit, and we don't have any updates as to this person's condition. Some flooding is still causing some roadway issues. Looking at traffic cameras here, we still have closures on Briley Parkway between Interstate 24 and Murfreesboro Road. We've got some of the streets underwater there. So that is to be dealt with. And also, we have a multi-vehicle crash. Just to get to that, that's on Interstate 40 westbound at right there near Fessler's Lane, and it's blocking the right 2 lanes there. All right, let's get to some money news here. Senators, they've now introduced some legislation to require Congress to approve tariffs. Late Wednesday, the Senate Well, they narrowly passed a measure to cancel the tariffs Trump has imposed on Canadian imports. Jay O'Brien, he has more.
The goal, again, is to give Congress more of a role in oversight over these trade actions, and it comes after legislation already passed the Senate last night to essentially cancel tariffs that the White House has threatened to impose on Canada. Remember those 25% tariffs on all goods from Canada and Mexico that made so many headlines in the early days of this administration.
The bill's not expected to go anywhere in the House, but it should be noted 4 Senate Republicans did sign on to that bill. That is the latest news. We'll get your official forecast coming up next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
USS, waterproofing, kids. Right? For a while there, people were, well, snow's going to melt. Snow, there's rivers outside now. Waterproofing, waterproofing, waterproofing. Your basement, your walls, foundation, waterproof. Are they ready to roll? Your crawl space. Wood rot, bad. Mold, double, triple bad. You want no part of that. That's why you need USS. They're not going to sell you any necessary repairs. They're going to come out and give you a free inspection. United Structural Service is ready for you. And you can check some of these things, but why don't you let the pros do it, right? Why don't you let them take a look? Are there visible cracks? Are there areas where water's getting in and out? You need to get it sealed before it gets worse, and there's a good chance it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Do you have a working sump pump in the basement, crawl space, in the event that stuff gets in there? What is going on that you can't see? Because you may see some things, but stuff you can't. It's about being taken care of, and it's about doing it before it gets worse. That's why USS is ready to help you. Call them today. If you're worried or not even worried, but you know what? You want that peace of mind, they'll give it to you. Call 615-488-7855. 615-488-7855. Check them out online at ussTN.com.
Canada has the greatest fence ever built. America. It is foolproof if you can afford it. Really easy to be the cool, open-minded hippie country when there's a Kevlar Snuggie of America draped around your fat, frozen asses, daring the world to talk shit. We don't use our military. We know. We got you taken care of. Go back to bed. We'll wake you when the NHL playoffs start.
Little Daniel Tosh there. It's true. You know, I always tell everybody the greatest health care for the rest of the world is our military, our might. When you don't have to spend like we do to protect the world, it's a great way for you to build up all your social stuff. Just a reminder to our friends in Canada, it's nice to know that Big Brother next door has you covered as a just in case. So as you gripe and moan about these things, this is going to be interesting. You know, several of you are asking me questions. They're like, one person says, tell me what the Democrats do better than the Republicans. I wasn't saying that. What I was saying is, and this happens, it's a lot of times people, it's like what I said, what you heard. Politicians care about their jobs. America first, it's about their jobs. That's what politicians care about, their jobs. Very few of them, I'm sure, are willing to sacrifice their job for the betterment of the country because it's their job. It's their identity. It's who they are, right? Rand Paul's just, an optometrist? I mean, he's not Rand Paul, right? Chuck Schumer's just, like it looks like an old vampire. He's not Chuck Schumer. Very few are willing to go, this is what is best for the country. And that guy was still, I'll quote it once a week, but I'll say it again. Reagan was right, man. Could you imagine what we could do if we did not care who got the credit? But unfortunately for politicians, for parties, for two corporations who absolutely live off who gets the credit, that matters. That matters indeed. So I've been watching Adolescence, and I heard Chris talking about it. And I will tell you, if you don't know anything about this show, it is, first of all, from an entertainment standpoint, it's tough to watch, but it's also very interesting. It brings up a lot of subjects. It throws, one of the things, and I was telling my wife this last night, it brings in those toxic masculinity. It's the manosphere. It's Andrew Tate. Well, Andrew Tate's a scumbag, but still, it's a lot of things like that. It's racism. It's this, that, and the other. There's a lot to it that you sit there. But one of the things that never gets talked about, needs to be talked about more, that never gets talked about is toxic femininity. Really, it's just toxic people. There are women out there that are toxic. I don't know if you're aware of that. Ask any other woman, she'll tell you. There are toxic women out there. We have neutered boys who've become neutered men. And it's not that we shouldn't bring this up, because I will say there's more than a ring of truth in some of this stuff that they talk around. They make it seem like this is all these things are, which isn't true. But are there young men out there that are looking for stuff because they're lost? Oh, you betcha. Are there young men out there that feel like they've been blamed for everything? 100%. Just like we got a generation of, what's her name, running around telling us, how dare you, right? You took away my childhood, blaming a whole generation of people that robbed her of her childhood. Settle down, Greta. We don't even know who you are. Somewhere along the line, and my mother and I talked about this a while ago before my grandma passed. My grandma was high up for a long time before they got wackadoo in NOW, National Organization of Women. And she goes, they lost their way when they decided feminism was never about equality. Eventually, it became about how can we stomp on men to get ahead. It wasn't about equality. And we've done that. We've neutered men. We've neutered young boys. The way that they teach at school now is all geared towards young boys. The lack in fathers at home, that's huge. And it's the blaming it on, this toxic masculinity. It's partially because women are just as toxic. Young women in particular are just as toxic. And you can't have that conversation anymore, which is horrible. Because there are young men out there that are struggling. They're angry. They're frustrated. They feel like they don't have anything. And their struggle is growing on a daily basis. This show is unique. Does it get a little wackadoo at times? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that as far as the way they push certain things. But it is an interesting concept, and it's an interesting thing to talk about when it comes to masculinity, because masculinity is vitally important. Masculinity is absolutely important. We've tried to blur the lines. We've tried to take away gender. We have pushed wackadoo ideology when, you know what? We need to talk about being strong humans, being strong people. And somewhere along the line, we've decided, no, it's about who can win something.
The film was powerful. I thought it made some really important points. I am almost certain it's going to cause a moral panic.
It's somewhat disconcerting for me, having researched this topic, to see this show being brought up in Parliament. Policy decisions from our politicians should be based on sober research rather than a piece of performance art. Violence towards others and killing people, mass shootings and things like that, is not the only harm associated with incel ideology. You have an opportunity cost of a generation of young men kind of giving up on dating.
And that's important too. We've got that, where giving up on dating has become a big deal. We've talked about the crisis we have in this country, and not just us, the West itself, Europe, Japan, and Korea, is huge. They're not producing children. Why? Left-leaning young women in their 20s and 30s, they are uber progressive. They're not Democrats. They're progressives. And they want nothing to do with young men. And there's a certain standard. And we don't want them to drop their standard. But at the same time, in one of the parts of the show, they talk about the fact that the DI, that's the detective inspector, and his son are chatting. And because this whole thing revolves around a certain group of people. But one of the things they're talking about is how men have to lie to women. And he's a kid. He's like, yeah, because why? Because of the competition. 80% of the women want 20% of the men. And to get the opportunity to even get a date or anything, you have to lie to them. And if you don't think that's true, this is Scott Galloway talking about the statistics of an average-looking man trying to get a singular coffee date.
I read that on Tinder, a man of average attractiveness has to swipe right 200 times to get one coffee, and then 4 of those 5 coffees will ghost him. They will decide they don't want to meet him or they won't show up. That means a guy of average attractiveness has to swipe right 1,000 times to get one coffee. Now, what does that tell that guy? Women don't value me. Women make me feel rejected. And then they go online and they see these misogynists telling them it's not your fault. And these men become much more prone to misogynistic content, much more prone to nationalistic content, blaming other people for the lack of economic opportunity. They start sequestering from society. I worry that we are literally evolving a new species of asexual, asocial male. And if a man by the age of 30 hasn't either lived with someone or married someone, there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to have a substance abuse problem.
Those are scary. Why? Because women, I mean, you see it all over. They want a certain standard. They want a certain thing. Great, you shouldn't drop your standard. But they're also trying to compete for the same thing. And they think there are a lot of people that are beneath them. And it is a much different world. And guys get angry. They get frustrated. They haven't had good role models. They've been told that they're the problem for everything. There was flooding last night? Man, that's his problem, right? Lightning? Man, that's his problem. Earthquake in Myanmar? Man, that's his problem. I mean, everything becomes about that. And when you think that it may take you a couple hundred swipes of just an average-looking guy, it was the old saying, there's somebody for everybody. Doesn't feel that way anymore. And with the politics thrown into it, it's just way tougher than I think people realize. And I'm raising a 14-year-old to be a man, to be strong, to be fair, to be kind, and when have to be hard. And not to listen to the baloney that is out there. And look, he's, for lack of a better, he's got a bit of my genes. So he's got a bit of game. He's going to be 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. But I tell you what, my brother, my little brother, man, he got all kinds of game. He got ladies all over the place. And several of his friends, though, and I mean several of his friends, and he's in his 20s, they are angry, and they are, it's really weird to watch some of them twist off. Because they'll talk about, like, yeah, I went on a date and she never talked to me again. And it was, I see it out there. So we always talk about the boys, the toxicity, as if there's not toxicity among human beings. Every one of you has known somebody from the opposite sex that, yes, is toxic. Not because they're a man or a woman, just because they're awful. Oh, my Lord. Coming up, we got a bald one out there. Saw that, Bell?
We do.
Yeah, we're gonna talk fentanyl at the top of the hour. I think it's important because what's going on, as we talk about consumption and overconsumption of stuff, one of the things I've always talked about, we have a fentanyl problem because we consume it, right? Like if there's no consumption for it, we wouldn't, there wouldn't be anything. But we do. And why? Why is it that there's a homeless problem that's growing? Why is it there's mental illness problem and homeless people everywhere? Why is it the fentanyl is running wild? And we've got two people that are going to come in, including a bald one. Yes, Alex's little brother. He's narrator in this movie, Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. And it is an interesting look at how bad this crisis is. And while the numbers are still going down, which is good, the reality is it's still ugly out there. And God willing, it doesn't get any worse. And you never know. So we're going to be talking to him in a little bit. A lot of other stuff to get to as well. We'll have some fun. It's not just all doom and gloom today. We've got more weather updates coming up, and I think it's going to be nasty out there tonight. And a reminder, any issues, you download the app, make sure you have it. You like and subscribe and make sure you're on the YouTube if that's the way you get us. Same thing with Twitter. So that way, if something happens, it pops, we're there. Whether it's Dan, myself, Matt, the entire team, whoever it's going to be, we will be here with you 24/7 to make sure that you guys are covered when it comes to the weather, especially as it's been touch and go the last few days, and I expect another one tonight. This is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. If you're looking at the marketplace and you're a little queasy, talk to my buddies over at Bulwark Capital. My buddy, Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer over there, I talked to him today. I said, dude, how's it going? I texted him. He was like, it's down, but we did well. We anticipate a lot of this stuff, and we're spread out across different markets all over the globe. Going up, going down, you can make money anyway in the stock market, but so many people, they just have cookie cutters when it comes to their 401k, their investments. Don't be that. Call them today. Get a second opinion when it comes to your investments and find out what they can do for you. Lower risk, lower cost, lower volatility, because you can't make money if you lose it. And on the other side of it, it's about active management, knowing when the time is to strike and doing it in a way that's built right for you and what it is that you're looking for. Call 866-779-RISK today, 866-779-RISK for Bulwark Capital, or go to knowyourriskradio.com. KNOW, yourriskradio.com. Investment advisory solutions offered by Trek Financial, LLC, SEC registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk, but not a guarantee. Past performance not guarantee future results. Trek 24173.
Damage here in the mid-state from last night's round of storms still being assessed and discovered. We'll have a report. And the federal government employee layoffs, they are still going on. We'll have some feedback on that. All that's coming up at 1 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hott Smuley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
Rand Paul, a lot of people in the MAGA world not happy with Rand Paul. I understand that. And, here's the thing with technology, the way that I don't think these things are going to last very long. I think for the most part, it's going to, unless everybody bands together and says, all right, we're going to all do this. And, that's the big thing in Europe. Are they going to do that? Or is one of them going to blink and then it's a domino effect? What goes on with China? China's a different beast altogether. We know that. This isn't just about, this isn't just about the tariffs. There's a lot of things that are going on with China. So, but do understand that, he's not lying. If everybody wants to make sure they keep their gig, but if things went sideways and the Republicans got blamed for it, a lot of people are going to be frustrated if they get thrown out and they lose. And that 60-year thing, that lasted a long time. It wasn't until, Newt Gingrich and them came in and the contracts with America, when they took back the House and stuff, my entire lifetime up until then, there wasn't a majority in the House and Senate. It was always Democrats. It's a long time to go. And some people don't remember that. It is, so when people talk about tariffs, this is going to take a while to suss itself out. And I think we're going to be fine. And no doubt about that. I mean, because the might that we have, and it may get tough for a while, and I want us as a nation. I don't care about party. I want us as a nation to succeed, to be strong, to be what we're supposed to be. That's what I want. And I think we need to, Trump, he's done his thing, and we're going to let him do his thing. And then the people will speak if they're not happy. But it's only been a day, and let's see how everybody else reacts to it. Because you never know, right? Some will blink, some won't. Some out of spite. And we'll, the market, I heard Chris talking about, you got to give the market, let it breathe a little bit. And it was already overbought anyways. And we've also, through quantum easing, have kept the market relatively smoking hot for years. We've never had runs like this. They're just crazy. So, but let these things breathe, and let's see what it looks like over time. And that time may be a month from now. It may be by the end of the day, he may take some off. You just don't know. I think, though, with the way he rolled it out yesterday, it is evident that he's going to see what everybody's reaction is going to be, and that he is in this to see what this looks like. So, and we, when it comes to Europe is pissed and angry, but they don't know what to do because what are we buying from them? A ton of stuff? What do they get from us? They import, we import some of their cars. That's going to be a hit for them. They're not Harley Davidson. They're not buying a ton of Harleys or jeans. They can work around that. So this will be interesting. China, though,
they
that's
buy a lot of our liquor, don't they? They
do. Lots of whiskey. And as you know, that they're kind of alcoholic by the sounds of it, the way they make it sound. But even Lord Sugar today, Alan Sugar said, this is not good for us because the reality, nobody cares. Yes, whiskey and jeans and Harley Davidson is one thing. But when it comes to the car side of stuff and the import, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt them a lot more than it hurts us because we still have whiskey and cars. Letting you guys know that. Coming up, we're going to talk about fentanyl, the crisis that is. Dr. Robert Marbit is going to join us. With Billy Baldwin, we're going to talk about the movie they have, Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. It's going to be interesting for sure. We're going to do that straight ahead. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. That all-important weather forecast is coming up for you here in a moment. But currently, we can tell you the National Weather Service here in Nashville has issued a flash flood warning for southeastern Cheatham County, as well as all of Davidson County, southeastern Dixon County, northeastern Hickman County, north central Murray County, northwestern Rutherford County, as well as southern Sumner County, all of Williamson and western Wilson County. All of this under a flash flood warning until 2:45 this afternoon. Well, it was a close call for a couple of folks in Fairview in Williamson County this morning after a huge tree fell onto their brand new car and hit their home on Pinecrest Court. They did talk to Channel 4.
So we were in our safe place in the middle of the house there, and everything kind of calmed down. I just laid back down. She was getting ready.
We lay back down, and I was undressing to get back in bed, and our bedroom is right there, 2 feet further east, and it would have taken out. It would have got him because he was in the bed.
And despite the damage to their car and their house, they're just grateful that they weren't hurt. In McNairy County, a home was destroyed during the storms last night, causing a police response.
I see it's a piece of plywood. We're going to be 1097 in the area of the CMV. How far? Wait for okay. I can get a couple buses in McNairy County. You guys want them over at Highway 64 at Spruce to stage?
Well, that was police searching for somebody in that house. Tennessee Highway Patrol told Channel 4 that while that home was destroyed, they didn't find anyone in it. So hopefully that's good news. McNairy County was one of 4 counties that did report a death during the line of severe weather last night. The other counties in the state that suffered fatalities were Obion, Hardeman, and two deaths in Fayette County. Sources tell ABC News the White House has hired a handful of fired a handful of staffers with the National Security Council. Sources say the decision comes after the president met with far-right activist Laura Loomer. Here's ABC's Catherine Faulders.
The timing also comes as we have been talking a lot about Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, and his use of Signal. Now, it doesn't appear that Loomer's meeting and Waltz and the use of Signal are correlated in any way. I'm sure it came up in some way, but Mike Waltz has been on shaky ground inside the White House. We know that President Trump has decided to keep him around for now, but it does seem, as this all plays out behind the scenes in the West Wing, that his fate potentially is still uncertain at this point.
That is the latest news. A weather report is on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Fentanyl is a killer, big time. And as these two guys are going to explain to you, a new documentary out called Fentanyl Death Incorporated. Dr. Marbit's here and Billy Baldwin, the voice of it. It is not just a kind of killer. If you compare it to all the wars we've been in the last several decades, it beats those numbers. Thank you guys for coming on today. So, Dr. Marbit, why fentanyl? Why this documentary?
There's nothing that's as much an existential threat to our country right now as fentanyl. More people have died in the last 3.5-4 years on fentanyl than all the American men and women service in the last 100 years of war. So think about that. World War II, Afghanistan, Iraq, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, global war on terror. Add them all up. More Americans have died because of fentanyl than our servicemen at war.
58,000 plus died in 15 years in Vietnam, and 100,000 died from fentanyl last year.
You know, I was watching a couple of interviews you guys were giving about this, and you were talking about, our population compared to the world, but our consumption and the death is so, we have a consumption problem as much as anything else.
Well, you have to address it from the supply side and the demand side.
Yeah.
We have to work with the Chinese government, the Mexican government, the Canadian government. There's almost as much coming in over the Canadian border as there is over the Mexican border. So we have to work on the supply side with all three of those countries, but we have to work on the demand side. We have 4% of the world's population, 4.7 or something.
Yeah.
38% of the global consumption of fentanyl and 66% of the global deaths from fentanyl with 4% of the population.
Which is, it is frightening. And the trailer, and for me, it's important. My mother was an alcoholic. My dad died he had a heart attack, but it was like his fifth of drug overdose. And this was back before fentanyl was even long before it was a thing. And I look at this and I understand addiction is massive. You guys had the homeless documentary with the chaos of homelessness, like in Sacramento, you talk about the 7 miles of homeless. I lived in Sacramento and in California at times. You're just like, my goodness, we've got a lot of issues here and a lot of it's tied together. Is it mental illness or is it drugs or is it both? We've got a huge problem and we need to figure this thing out because it is a true threat. And because it's people that are nameless, faceless, and we stick them somewhere and you hope you don't see them, it's tough to get because that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's son, somebody's husband and wife.
And think about 1950, there were 500,000 government-funded mental health beds in America. 1950, our country's twice as big now. And we have less than 30,000 government-funded mental health beds in America. And almost all those are forensic beds. And so where did the untreated mental illness go in America? It's gone to the emergency rooms. It's gone to the jail. It's gone to the streets. And that's why a lot of people have a misconception, especially on my side of the table. I'm on the right side. Billy's on the left. But on the right side, there are a lot of people say this is substance use driven. It's really untreated mental illness and you're self-medicating because there's no
and then it gets much worse with
it.
this stuff because it
and
eats your brain.
And fentanyl's just changed this.
Well, when
it's
you ask
totally
them,
different
I
thing.
mean, fentanyl and COVID have homelessness went from 4,000 to 17,000 in Sacramento, went from 54,000 to 76,000 in LA County. And now you have sort of the compassionate component that's always been there saying, we have to help these people in some way.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, because the numbers have gotten so bad because of fentanyl and COVID, and it doesn't discriminate. The woman who founded YouTube is a billionaire. Her son overdosed at Berkeley a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Nobody cares.
And
Like, black, white, gay, straight, Republican,
educated,
Democrat,
rich, poor,
it doesn't matter.
It does not discriminate. So it's getting more and more people's attention for that reason, but it's also getting their attention because it's now not the people that you sweep under the carpet that you don't see every day. It's now when you, when I explain to people what it might take, I'm not an expert on this, but I've learned a lot about it over the years. And when I explain the type of care that's required, the type of care that his facility in San Antonio Haven for Hope is doing for the people there at a 70% plus success rate, comprehensive wraparound type of care, mental health, addiction treatment, job training, job placement, livable wages, affordable housing, all of that stuff that gets 70% of them back on their feet, self-sufficient, independent, requiring no more services. They're like, oh, that sounds awfully expensive. And I'm like, well, it's costing you more right now to not do enough because there's a 911 call. And when we were in Spokane, there was a 911 call for the same person 6 times in one day.
Yeah.
So then you deploy the fire department, the police department, the sheriff, the paramedics. then they go to the emergency room, then they're admitted, then they go into the court system, then they're incarcerated. Then you go downtown, it's Small Business Administration, Department of Commerce, Department of Tourism, property values dropping. So it's affecting, you have a compassionate component to it, and you have a quality of life and economic argument to be made as well.
Absolutely. Talking to Billy Baldwin and Dr. Marbut, they've got the new documentary. It's a must-see. It's called Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. You talk about, like, this didn't start out of nowhere, especially with fentanyl. And a lot of it started because we had a huge opioid crisis and people were hunting and craving more. And that has been a disaster. And it's led to fentanyl cheap, easy, and deadly.
There's a direct tie from the Purdue pharma crisis.
Of course, yeah.
14 years ago. This is really recent, just 14 years ago. And when all the lawsuits happened, the docs stopped prescribing, the pharmacies stopped giving it out, the hospitals stopped using it. What happened was the Mexican cartel said, we already have a supply chain in with meth. We're already bringing in another product. So they already had the supply chain built, and they worked with the Chinese, and immediately, like within months, were able to backfill that supply. And remember, we had millions of people on prescriptions with Oxycontin-type synthetic opioids, hundreds of thousands addicted. And so the cartels, they're an insidious group of people, but they're incredible entrepreneurs. And they just said, we're already there. We can backfill this and put it in. And that's why it ramped up so fast.
And the biker gangs with the super labs up in Canada are also, I don't know what the numbers are. What are they?
Yeah,
what do you think? It's not 50-50, but it's getting close,
It's
right?
getting real close now.
Yeah.
So,
and that border is porous from, what do you say, from Blaine to Maine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the longest land border in the world between two countries. And we have our Border Patrol that's literally in kayaks, on horseback, on ATVs, on motocross bikes, because the terrain is so rugged. And there's so many different places where you can come across the border.
And that's just the northern border. We're not even talking sort of the western frontier of Canada with Alaska.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people forget Canada and the U.S. have the longest land border in the world between any two countries.
And it's porous. You got horseback, you got nothing. There's so much out there. And now with the advent of technology, drones, these things, it's crazy. I was sitting there, and I was watching one of your interviews, and you guys were talking about the fact that you were out there and you're watching somebody get Narcan. It's crazy to think, I'm 54. I know I look great, but still, the reality of me thinking that libraries would be saving more people than probably giving out books in certain areas is just mind-blowing.
And right now, I mean, how we've got our systems all messed up, that jails are providing most of the psychiatric services in America. I mean, and we know that's not working, yet that's where they go because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And we had a situation where we were in Seattle and we were doing a tour, and within like 80 seconds, so we walked out, go down, and there's a gentleman on the ground, a guy named Blessing. And it ended up 4 firefighters came, then 2 EMS plus a EMS driver. We had 2 county sheriffs. We had 2 PDs. We had 3 local ambassadors, plus a couple other nonprofits. So there's almost 20 people working on this gentleman, and he's down. And he is just gone. And they Narcan him, bring him back. And in my mind, that gentleman needs to go and get help. And he was refusing service. And he turned to the EMTs and says, "Get off me. Don't lay a hand on me."
Is there a component, you guys, you talk about the right and the left here in this situation. There's a component of compassion, and places like California is a perfect example, where somewhere along the line, they decided that, it's a lifestyle choice. And it's a compassion, and we're just letting them be them. That it's not compassion to let somebody mentally.
Well, they talk about it being their freedom, and they are free to get high. They are free to overdose. They aren't free to have that happen and have us pay for it.
Yeah.
That is not freedom to us, and that sounds very sort of right of center. But I'm saying,
man, I'm not going to tell anybody. Don't worry.
No, it's okay.
No, but it's
I'm
true.
on the record saying it because if they should have the. I mean, you could argue, since back with Dr. Kevorkian, about choosing to die. I don't want to stray off.
But it's a different kind of choosing to die. You may have been sick and dying.
But when it's affecting tourism, commerce, property values, when you're affecting that's why we have a beautiful opportunity now, because
Yeah.
there was the compassionate side that was sort of more left-leaning. The right hates when I say that. It makes it sound like they're lacking in compassion. But then I've done this before with the National Endowment for the Arts. I used to say you have to be bilingual. When I would go testify in the House of the Senate, or when I would go lobby and with Denny Hastert or Orrin Hatch, I was speaking one language as opposed to what I was talking to when I was speaking with Ted Kennedy. When I was speaking to the left, there's basically would say the compassion component about why these people need us to help them to sort of restore their dignity. And I'm not, again, a child becomes homeless. Is it their fault?
No.
Someone's PTSD from serving in combat. Is it their fault?
No, that's
Someone's a victim of domestic violence and they're lost on the street. Is it their fault?
No.
Someone ages out of foster care and they don't have the tools. Foster care didn't provide them. Is it their fault? Then they say, well, what about the ones that choose to? They're doing drugs. They don't want to. I go, they don't have access to health care like we do. We go see a doctor. We see a psychologist. We see a psychiatrist. We get medication to deal with anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD. They don't have access to that, so they're self-medicating on the street with alcohol and with fentanyl. And I just think we have a wonderful opportunity now, because I'm becoming even more bilingual. When I speak to the left, I continue to talk about the compassion component and where you have gone wrong, where you were well-intended, and where your policies, we now know 15 years later, low bar, no bar, it hasn't worked. And when you talk to the right about how we're going to fund it, like, that sounds awfully expensive. I said, you're paying more right now to not do enough. And I have done conservatorships against family members. And one of the people involved with this documentary is in policy. Her husband's the retired police chief. And she's saying, when I get a 911 call and I have a bridge jumper, we don't take them down off the bridge and let them go home.
Yeah.
We take them.
Yeah.
We take them. The definition of a conservatorship is, are they a threat to themselves or others, or have they harmed themselves or others? Blessing that day clearly was a threat to himself. He flatlined, and a threat to others because he's dying on the streets. And he clearly harmed himself because if we didn't Narcan him, he would have been dead. And he hadn't yet harmed anyone else. When I had to do a conservatorship over a family member, everything was filed in the courts. And it was a ticking bomb. We had to wait for a year and a half before he got physical with somebody. Then we were able to take his rights, get him the medication. He's been living by himself in New Jersey for 30 years, totally self-sufficient, totally independent. I'm saying this is pretty radical. Maybe we should let the decision of the firefighters and the paramedics and the sheriffs and the police to say, let's take him, let's detox him. And when he's in a more sober, clear-headed space, to say, I'd rather be out on the streets. I don't want your help. I don't know how long that would take. I don't know if it's not a 72-hour. It's not a 72-hour lockdown. It's like a week to 10 days.
You know, it's interesting, and one of the things you talk about, that compassionate side. I mean, we've seen, with Newsom and the amount of money, but with no accountability. And see, that's the big thing. The no accountability. Like, here's all this money for homelessness. Here's all this money for stuff, and we're not asking for results, and the results are none.
I think you got to have a common sense middle. And there's a theme, Billy and I came across a social worker, I think, up in Seattle, who sort of said, we're having this conversation. And he goes, compassion without accountability is enablement.
Yes.
And I was like, that is it. I mean, that is exactly our problem.
Strings attached. But what people have to understand is, when they go downtown in San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and they have these drug centers, that was not a left-leaning policy. That was the policy of the police department, because they didn't want to have to spread their resources out all across the city. So they would give you the paraphernalia, not the drugs, but the paraphernalia to do the drugs, and a nurse that would be there to make sure that you didn't die with Narcan available, so that their resources weren't spread in 20 different locations. They were in one or two in Seattle, Spokane, Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco. That was a policing practice.
In a public policy level, when I've worked in the White House, to me, the last 10 to 15 years, and the right by not funding some things and the left by going into the harm reduction, well-intended but not worked, what we've had is we're making it so easy to get high now and so hard to get treatment. We got to flip it on its head. We got to make it easy to get treatment and hard to get high.
Absolutely. Can you guys stick around for one more segment?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Billy Baldwin, Dr. Marbitson here, talking about the new movie Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. They're going to join us. Again, we're going to talk more about this because it needs to be talked about. This is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Prize Picks, you want to win? Of course you do. It's fantasy. It's like the easiest thing to do. It's above and below. It's not, you're not picking spreads or any of that crazy stuff. It's easy. Like sports, say for baseball, like Ohtani. You think Ohtani's going to have, I don't know, a home run last night was pretty awesome. Check that out. Above or below, one hit. You can go across sports and maybe say, do you think Ovechkin's going to score a goal above or below? That's how you're winning with 1,000 times your money. And the minute you use my code, Chad, when you download the Prize Picks app, guess what? Boom, $5 you play, you get $50, win or lose, right off the bat. Put right into your account. So try Prize Picks. You're going to love it. You can go, like I said, so easy to do. And it's not about picking anything other than above or below. Everything from balls and strikes in the first inning to hits to runs to how many points somebody's going to score in a basketball game or how many shots somebody's going to hit in a hockey game. Pick your favorite players. It's fantasy done right. Prize Picks. Download the app today. Go check it out. Prize Picks. Use my code, Chad. Get a $50 bonus when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Sadly, there have been a number of deaths in Tennessee from the severe weather overnight. We'll have a report on that. And parts of the Congress are trying to reverse those tariffs on Canada. We'll have that story as well. That's all coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We're talking about a very serious subject. There's a movie out right now. It is called Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. Dr. Mabit's here. And Billy Baldwin, you voice it in this. What made you want to get into to talk about something like this?
Well, of course, the subject matter. It's just been, I've never seen, between COVID and fentanyl, I've never seen something affect our society and affect our economy and the psyche of America faster than fentanyl and COVID did. It's just exacerbated and compounded a problem that was already there. We have a fentanyl drug problem, we have a homelessness problem, but we really have a severe mental health crisis, and we have to address that in a very meaningful way.
Doctor, you do this. I mean, you see this. You're on the right side of the aisle. You talk about, and again, this isn't politics. This is just life. What have you seen over the last? We were talking before this. Like my buddy lived in Portugal for a long time. He came over. We were up in San Francisco. He's like, man, we don't have any of this. They decriminalized it, and they made it so though You don't do it on the streets. You have to go through partial treatment as you get any of these drugs. And if you're caught with the drugs out, you pay the price for it. Somehow that went away, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and a lot of people have, go to Amsterdam and say, oh, they legalized. They actually haven't. It's actually a very controlled process. Now, low-end stuff you can do at the coffee shop, but if you're talking about something like fentanyl or meth, you have to be in a treatment program. You have to have accountability. It's compassion with accountability together. But and there's tendency on my side of the aisle say, let's don't fund it. It's their choice. We're already spending so much money in this, in our emergency response system, our 911, our jails, our medical centers, our ERs. We're already spending the money. So why not spend the money better on the right? And on the left really needs to allow for compassion with accountability. We have to have some strings with the treatment.
I think lowering it to a misdemeanor was a mistake. I think it should be a felony. In the old days, when my father was a kid in the 40s and 50s, judges would say, you're in trouble. You're either going to prison or you're going to go to the Army. They'll straighten your butt out. And a lot of people, the right candidates for that, you don't just throw anybody in the military, but the people that could be safe. And I think that these misdemeanor drug issues should be felonies, and then they should be given an option. Do you want to go do time in prison, or do you want to go to rehab for 6 months and have a chance to turn your life around? And that would be a pilot program that I think would be worth experimenting with.
Absolutely. One of the things, though, and I've got young kids. I've got 16-year-old, a couple 14-year-olds, and a 6-year-old. One of the things that scares me, and I talked to Eric Bowling about this a few years ago, it's the one pill can kill. These kids nowadays, fentanyl is as frightening as it gets, and they have no idea what they're taking. They're thinking they're getting an Adderall or a Ritalin, and the next thing you know, their life is over and done with, and that is terrifying.
It is. The fastest growing death rate of children 0 to 4 is fentanyl. That's just mind-boggling to me, how we got here.
And the number one cause of death between 18 and 45, more than cancer and heart disease, is fentanyl right now.
And it's because 2 to 3 grains salt equivalent of fentanyl will kill one person. 1 rice grain will kill 15. We've never seen something that on the street this potent.
A sugar packet can kill 500 people?
Yeah.
A packet of sugar, if it was fentanyl, would kill 500 people.
I remember watching a documentary, kind of like Seattle's Burning or whatever that documentary was. But it was in San Francisco, and these guys are looking for some drugs, and this druggie goes, "Give me your $20, I'll go get you drugs," because they were going to buy it from another guy. And he went and got them drugs. He says, "There's no fentanyl in this. If you guys would have smoked that, both of you guys would have been dead immediately." And it is terrifying because it is this isn't your mom and dad's kind of party.
In all the other illicit drugs on the street, I mean, all the way from weed to meth and trank and all these other things, the DEA is finding about 70% of it is now laced with fentanyl. Just cross-contamination, because the drug dealers one day are making fentanyl, and the next day they're making meth, and the next day they're making K2 spice. So they're not sitting there in a clean lab cleaning down the table, so the fentanyl dust is still there. And so this cross-contamination is becoming a huge problem, and a lot of the increasing deaths are not even being reported as fentanyl. They're being reported as another drug because it's cross-contamination.
In the documentary, there's a young girl talking about her friend who didn't do drugs at all, ever. And she went to a sorority party. She had a glass of champagne too much. She woke up the next day with like a hangover, asked her housemates, "I have a splitting headache from a hangover." They just handed her a pill and said, "Take this, it'll take care of it." She thought it was extra strength Tylenol or something, or Advil, and it wound up being a street Oxycontin or something, a painkiller that was laced with fentanyl, and she took it and never woke up. 19 years old.
Somebody just asked, why fentanyl? Like, why is the fentanyl so easy? Why is it out there when, you think about why is it put inside of all this? Why would anybody even think about taking it?
Well, and that's what the suppliers are having a problem. They've tried to dilute it down, and they're really working to dilute it because in the beginning, the first 3 or 4 years of market, people were one pill and down.
Yeah, you're killing your customers.
Yeah, it's not good business model, and so they have been trying to dilute it. But fentanyl is so powerful, so potent. We've now 100 times more powerful than morphine. So you got to have microscopic lab equipment to get it that precise. So now they're starting to dilute it with other things. And so, in Philadelphia in particular, that sort of became the center of trank, which is 30% horse tranquilizer,
That's insane.
70% fentanyl. This is insane. This is like out of control. And now with the cross-contamination, some people are purposely lacing.
The dealers will give it away for free.
To hook you.
To get you hooked.
Yeah.
They'll walk around the streets of Vancouver and Seattle, Spokane, and they'll give it away for free. You take this once or twice, you're done, and then you're buying it. And it's not like the old days, $100 a gram. This is you get one of these pills for $2 or $3.
Yeah.
And people are doing it every 4, 5, 6 hours.
And part of it, in the beginning, the business model was margin. It was like $35 per pill. Now most pills around the country are running about 87 cents. So it's dropped. This is why the invention of the biker gangs in Canada coming in, they started to compete with the Mexican cartel, and so supply and demand.
Yeah.
So when they came in, it was no longer a sort of monopoly out of Mexico. So now you got stuff coming in, and you're starting to get local street gangs starting to make it themselves and starting to go online, get all the chemicals themselves and making it. So that's what's driven the price down. So this is the most potent drug ever on the street and one of the cheapest drugs ever on the street. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
People want to go see this. People want to check this out. How do they get access? Where do they go?
Well, we'll be streaming in the next couple months here, and Warner Brothers is our distributor, and they've been just a great, great partner of understanding the importance of getting this out.
And hopefully when everything's over, maybe we can get it on the theater and have a big thing here. That'd be great. We thank you guys coming in today, Billy Baldwin, Dr. Marbut. We appreciate that. And go check out when it comes out, Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon. It's 32 minutes past 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper, and I've got your top stories. We'll get you a full forecast here shortly. Again, to remind folks, we are under a flash flood warning until 2:45 this afternoon. Here are the areas under this warning: southeastern Cheatham County, as well as all of Davidson, all of Williamson County as well. In addition, southeastern Dixon County, northeastern Hickman County, north central Murray County, northwestern Rutherford, and southern Sumner County, as well as western Wilson County. Again, under a flash flood warning until 2:45 here this afternoon. Currently, you have parts of, the Waverly area, Paris, Tennessee, Clarksville, southern Kentucky, all the way up to Bowling Green, Franklin, Kentucky, that area dealing with some fairly intense storms at the moment. Nashville emergency officials, of course, and we're doing it too, warning everybody we need to stay weather aware here over the next several days. We've got these storm systems moving through the area, and the Nashville Office of Emergency Management says that heavy rain and flooding could quickly come on top of us here in Davidson County all the way through the weekend. Officials have confirmed, sadly, that at least 5 people thus far have died as a result of these storms that moved through overnight. The Tennessee Emergency Management Agency confirmed that weather-related deaths were reported in McNairy County, 1 death there, 1 death in Obion County, another in Hardeman County, and 2 in Fayette County. And multiple media outlets reporting that a person got struck by lightning in the Green Hills area last night. Police dispatch confirms that the victim was struck at the Hilton on Cleghorn Avenue. The victim was outside when they were hit by the lightning. We don't have any updates at the moment as to this person's condition. As far as traffic is concerned, with respect to flooding issues, Briley Parkway, parts of it are still shut down due to it being underwater between Interstate 24 and Murfreesboro Road. And we also have the right 2 lanes blocked on 440 eastbound right before the Granny White Pike overpass. There's a crash there, and reportedly you've got a car that's into the trees there that is causing quite a disturbance to traffic, as you could well imagine. On to other news. Senators have introduced legislation to require Congress to approve tariffs. Late Wednesday, the Senate narrowly passed a measure to cancel the tariffs that Trump imposed on Canadian imports. Jay O'Brien has more.
The goal, again, is to give Congress more of a role in oversight over these trade actions, and it comes after legislation already passed the Senate last night to essentially cancel tariffs that the White House has threatened to impose on Canada. Remember those 25% tariffs on all goods from Canada and Mexico that made so many headlines in the early days of this administration.
The bill's not expected to go anywhere in the House, but it's interesting to note that 4 Senate Republicans did sign on to this bill. That is the latest news. We've got your weather report next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Beacon Capital Management. Time like this, it's good to have Beacon around. By the way, retirement's not just about investments. You don't want to outlive your investments, and you sure don't want to unretire and have to go back to work. But Beacon handles so many different things, and that's what makes them unique. From planning for retirement, not just about the portfolio, but what about taxes? What about estate planning, even healthcare? And yes, what about times like this? That's what Beacon's there for. So they've got a retirement-ready toolkit just for you. It's no cost, no obligation, absolutely no pressure, and they're local. And it is going to give you everything you need inside of there to get a nice feel of what's happening, including a Money Enough for Life book, a retirement planning checklist, and a Maximizing Your Retirement Income white paper. At a time like this, where there's uncertainty in the world, certainty in the markets, it's good to have a friend out there, and Beacon can help you. Call 615-488-9303 today to get your free retirement-ready toolkit. That's 615-488-9303, or check them out online at askbeaconnow.com.
Yesterday, Donald Trump made one of the dumbest decisions he has ever made as president, and that's saying something.
Chuck Schumer. He's got a lot of them. Are you guys ready for this one? Maybe my favorite one he has said in a while. Chuck Schumer.
Donald Trump is using tariffs in the dumbest way imaginable. In fact, Donald Trump slapped tariffs on penguins and not on Putin.
Oh, look at that. Settle down. Secondary, by the way, the secondary things that he has threatened as far as tariffs on Putin that would hammer them because everybody has a workaround to get some of the natural gas, oil, and all the stuff they need is much stronger than anything that Biden did. Much, much stronger than that. Interesting, for sure. And my buddy Houston, he's extremely big when it comes to the investment world, like the kind of big where we're talking so many figures that he handles. And I text him wee hours in the morning. He's like, oh, dude, he just got back to me. He said, sorry, man, I'm in Bora Bora, as you do. I said, what do you think of all this? Give me a quick 5-second snap thing. And he said, most of these are going to be walk back. The China one is the one to worry about because this is more than just about tariffs. And those are stiff. And this is going to be a bigger battle than some people realize. So this is interesting. There's no doubt about that. Interesting. And, I think some of it's going to work. I think some of it is, again, Trump, but like a lot of these people, they overpromise and underdeliver. That's what you do in politics. The long term is I don't know. Somebody said earlier, they text the program and they said, hey, about this, you got to think about your kids and your grandkids. Here's the thing. I don't know what my kids and grandkids are going to be doing in 10 years when it comes to an industry. With AI and all the stuff that's coming, a lot of this stuff is going to change. So when we talk about manufacturing, doing certain things, the stuff that we may be looking to do may be done strictly by robots, or some of it may just be obsolete altogether, which is crazy. But it doesn't mean that this doesn't have a great opportunity of working in some ways, probably not in all ways, because you don't get always. That's perfection. Again, one person was perfect, and we saw what happened to him.
The fact is that President Trump has been saying that he supports tariffs because he has the intuition of what we talked about, how those incomes are not gaining because we're losing the jobs abroad. He's been saying that for 40 years, and he just won a landslide election, really, in the U.S. It's the idea that it's bad politics for tariffs. Well, the voters who voted for Trump should have heard that. And the bottom line is the reason it's good politics is people know what happened to their communities, just like you remember what it was like when we were growing up. And President Trump is going to fix it with this policy. It is absolutely an incredible day in the history of American economic history because we're finally stopping the trade war. It's not we're starting a trade war, we're stopping the trade war because we're going to once again build everything here in the U.S.
And that we can. And that's always a big thing, that we can. Because some stuff, it's not worth it to us. We couldn't make it affordable enough for us to want to purchase here. It wouldn't be affordable enough. And for some of us, you look out there and you think, okay, what could we build here? And because so many things are manufactured all over the place, even it might be assembled here and it might be 40% of it is built here, but 60% of it is built elsewhere, but not 60% in one area. It's just it's all over the place. That's kind of the issue that I think a lot of people, trying to get around. What's that threshold of what is called made in America? If it's all made in America, but it's assembled in Mexico, is that made in America? Even though everything was made here, but the puzzle pieces put together down there. Oh, yeah. We contend with a lot of things that nations don't have to contend with. We do. And this is a snapshot, as awful as China is. If you go and look at China and see the amount of stuff that they have built and how fast they do certain things, you don't have 400,000 regulations like you do in California. You don't have to worry about the EPA, OSHA, a lot of these other things that you just don't have to contend with, which is also one of the reasons that the issues are here about trying to do anything. Go back to that Bill Maher piece he did, a couple weeks ago about the $1.7 million to build a toilet in California. $1.7 billion. And so for the homeless, and it had to be all these certain things. Well, the guy who said, I'll donate the toilet and I'll build it. It was still $1.2 million because $1.2 million was all of the stuff, paperworks, the regulations, the EPAs, the inspections. That is also one of the things that drives up cost and makes it untenable to do business here. It's the little things you don't see, but when you add them all up, it's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, guys, are you ready for this? This seems like something I would have said and done, but reality is I don't think I could have got away with this many.
In a remote desert house about an hour outside of Las Vegas, authorities have found not one, not two, but 7 tigers. The sheriff says the tigers belong to Carl Mitchell, who lacks a permit for the exotic cats and was arrested for resisting officers.
I have PTSD.
Back in 2018, our affiliate KTNV spoke to Mitchell, who claimed he doesn't need permits because he said the tigers are his emotional support animals.
Here's a little insight to the exotic animal world. There's a lot more tigers and stuff out there in captivity than you want to realize. On top of that, tigers are not expensive. Bears are not expensive. You can buy these animals very, very cheap. The problem is feeding them, having a place for them, and being able to handle them in a responsible way, which many people aren't. You must be doing something well if you've got 7 tigers to feed.
At the time,
Where do you find out where he got them?
the county claimed he was illegally exhibiting the animals, citing photos of celebrities with the cats, including Michelle Rodriguez and Cara Delevingne. Mitchell says those were simply photos with friends. Federal documents show Mitchell has purchased the cats from none other than the Tiger King himself, Joe Exotic. Exotic is serving a prison sentence for, among more serious charges, selling tigers across state lines.
Joe Exotic, even from jail, man. Still moving on. I got a tiger. Yeah, I got a tiger. You want a tiger? You interested in a tiger? 7 tigers. I think what the cost was, $250 a day, something like that. I mean, that guy's probably looking at probably $1,000 plus a day. Plus, just to feed. They don't eat cat food. They eat stuff that...
They'll eat a cat.
They'll eat a cat, right? They'll eat the dog. They'll eat all the things they can get that. They'll eat it, but they don't eat like Friskies. Hey, kids, it's Friskies. Who wants Friskies? Oh, my Lord. A lot of you chiming in about the conversation that we were having with Billy Baldwin, Dr. Marbit, which is, I think, an important one about fentanyl and the crisis we have. And it is a crisis. And mental health is a serious issue. And the frustration when you see people on the side of the road and the worry that it can happen, I mean, in such a way where it can grow in a certain area. And it is mental illness. Now, what came first, the drugs or the mental illness? You can debate that. But when they tell everybody, and the left for years has made it seem like it's affordable housing, right? Somebody missed a paycheck or two, and then they ended up on the streets. Not happening. Right? That isn't, that isn't happening the way. Does it happen once in a great while? Absolutely. Are there places where people are priced out somewhat in the market? Yes. But what you see on the streets, in the tents, 90+% of that is mental illness. Somebody doesn't miss a paycheck or two and go, well, guess I should start doing heroin and meth and, talking to myself in the corner. That's not the way that works. And it is an important conversation to have. And the price side of it is huge. Just like with us and our obesity. And I'm not just talking about trade. I'm talking about us and our obesity. That cost us so much money. And will continue to do so. We've got an addiction problem, and it's not just a spending, as we've gotten, to on several occasions today, and we're going to talk about in a little bit. But we have an addiction problem in this country in a lot of ways. We became a consumption nation because of how strong and powerful we were, how much we have at our hands and our fingertips, that we consume at such a rate, no matter what it is, that we become addicted to it. It's a personality thing. No doubt about that. All right, coming up, a lot of stuff to get to still today. More on check on the weather and what's going on out there. And remember, tonight, expecting more issues, expecting more bad weather. We're going to be here all through the night, whatever you need, whether it is Bell and I and Matt and Dan and Chris or whoever it's going to be. Jay's going to be here all through the night. If things get really nasty, which there's a possibility that could happen again with more tornado watches and the potential for flash flooding, make sure you download the app. Take us everywhere with you, and you'll be alerted immediately when we go live to let you know about the latest that's happening with the weather. This is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Speaking of consumption, we're all frustrated with the yo-yo dieting world, and that's why I want to introduce you to Lean. Now, I want you to go to takelean.com. You're going to use my code Benson20. Let me tell you why. The yo-yo dieting world of dropping 20, putting on 30, getting frustrated, doing it over and over again, it's bad for your body, right? Leads to type 2 diabetes, increases the chance of stroke and heart attack. You don't want that. You want to maintain, and that's what Lean does scientifically. It's formulated in such a way that gives you 3 big components. First, it's about fighting the cravings, right? Getting rid of the food noise. Secondly, and this is important, maintaining that blood sugar. And finally, burning the fat and turning it into energy. That's what Lean does. Fight the cravings, get off the yo-yo dieting, and get with Lean. This is going to help you in such a major way. Save 20% right now. You're going to use my code Benson20 at takelean.com. Go there now. Use takelean.com. Use code Benson20. No injections, no prescriptions. Takelean.com. Code Benson20.
past and future weather events continuing to top our news. We'll have all that for you at 2 p.m. on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
They are true fans bordering on fanatic. Hundreds of LA fans lined up outside Dodger Stadium for 12 hours or more Wednesday just to make sure they'd get a Shohei Ohtani bobblehead. Pablo Reyes waited outside the stadium all day.
I'm waiting for so long, since 10 in the morning. Dude, it was worth it, though. It was worth it.
This fan, we'll call him Julian, skipping school.
Yeah, good day to play hooky. Just don't tell my teachers.
Think waiting that long for an Ohtani bobblehead is nuts? Marcial says.
Just get over it. We win. That's right. They're not like us.
So last night, the bobblehead. Shohei Ohtani, best baseball player ever. Period. Case closed. It's just, at this point, it's just insane. 5-5, ninth inning, his bobblehead night. Wonder what he can do.
Designated hitter for 17, Shohei Ohtani.
High fly ball to center field. Harris is back.
Just the guy rises to the moment in so many ways. It's a beast, literally beast. Huge too. He's massive, massive. The Shohei Ohtani bobbleheads that were free yesterday are now selling for $200 on eBay. Oh my goodness me! I mean, just crazy. A lot of you chiming in about our interview, and we'll post it with Billy Baldwin, Dr. Marbit, about the movie. And if you want to know what the movie's called, it's called Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. And some of you saying, oh, these people are mentally ill. They're not mentally ill. Somebody said they're not, 90% of them aren't mentally ill. They're mentally ill because of the drug. Some of them were mentally ill and they're self-medicating, and there's that. Some started partying and taking so many drugs that now that they become mentally ill. And it is crazy. And when I was in Phoenix, there was a big thing in downtown Phoenix that got called out by the New York Times. The guy wanted to sell his sandwich shop and nobody would buy it. And the New York Times did an op-ed and an expose on the guy on how bad it was. And so I spent a few days down there. And I will tell you this, as I've said, and I was telling my on-air partner at the time and several of the others went down there, because I called it for what it was, which is it's a homeless industrial complex of people getting a lot of money and doing very little with no accountability. And the other side of it is mental illness. And it's not about housing prices. And yes, in some areas it may be there's an issue. There's no doubt there's a struggle. But, you're standing there talking to a telephone pole with your pants down is not, oh, you missed a paycheck. And there was a lot of that. A lot of that. It was awful. And that is been allowed to happen in a lot of places in this thought process of compassion. And in some cases, just embarrassment. So you stick them somewhere so nobody sees them. And they're human beings. And there's no compassion allowing a human being to die on the street or to commit crimes over and over against people as if it's no big deal. Because, it's a lifestyle choice and the police don't want to really get involved because we should feel sorry. That's not compassion. It's anything but. It's the exact opposite. Coming up, third hour of the big program. A lot of stuff still to get to. Bunch of stuff. More on Adolescence, that show, which is a lot of you texting about. Some more on tariffs. Bunch of other stuff. TikTok, will it stay? Will it go? Will it stay? Will it go? We'll discuss that as well. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. We are coming up on 2 p.m. here. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. That weather forecast, it's coming up in a few minutes. Weather forecasters saying round 2 of severe weather and heavy rain will increase today through about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. In fact, we're already starting to see some rainfall enter the western metro for Nashville. Also, Lexington, Tennessee, seeing quite a bit of activity at the moment. Centerville, Hohenwald, that area, you're in the crosshairs. Also, Clarksville, they've been dealing with storms for quite some time. In any event, a tornado watch has been issued for most of our listening area up until 10 o'clock tonight. Middle Tennessee is also under an enhanced risk level for areas along west of I-65. A slight risk to marginal risk is predicted elsewhere in Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. There is a concern about the possibility of some strong tornadoes for areas west of I-65. Hail could also reach up to about 2 inches in size, and damaging wind gusts, they will also be a primary concern. In McNairy County, a home was destroyed during the storms last night, causing a police response. This is how it sounded as the police went through this destroyed home looking for anyone that may be there.
I see is a piece of plywood.
We're going to be 1097 in the area of the CMV. How far? I can get a couple buses in McNairy County. Do you guys want them over at Highway 64 Spruce to stage?
Well, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, they told Channel 4 they didn't find anybody in that home. Hopefully that's good news. McNairy County was one of 4 counties that did report a death during that line of severe weather last night. The other counties were Obion, Hardeman. They each had 1 fatality, and 2 were reported in Fayette County. The President of the United States has approved an emergency declaration for Tennessee amid the outbreak of the tornadoes and severe storms that went through the state. FEMA announced this morning federal disaster assistance has been made available to supplement response efforts in the areas affected by the severe storms. The declaration applies statewide in all 95 counties, according to a news release from the Department of Human Services. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Guys, Wellness Institute of Nashville. Why don't you go over and see them right now in honor of the big 47. It's 47 President of the United States, 47% off. Thanks to Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley in the big 47 offer. Now, what is this about? Well, it's about your back, right? Health is important. Your back, man. Don't mess around with that. It's non-surgical. It's a great way to go in. You see your consultation because it's about you, right? It's not one size fits all. How can they build a plan for you that's right to get your back to the way you want it, where you're moving and you're living life the way you should, pain-free. That's what it's about. You're going to need an exam, right? X-rays included. You can bring an MRI, and then they go through the whole thing, and they talk about, hey, this is what we're looking to do. This is the game plan that we got. We got to get you feeling better. And it is amazing what they have. State-of-the-art technology that is going to get you moving and grooving this year. Take advantage of the Big 47 offer going on at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call them today. Start living that pain-free life. You've tried the others, right? You tried the rest. Well, try the best with the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009, or go to painisbad.com. Weather. Expect more weather tonight. Ugly, nasty. How bad it'll be, we'll figure that out. Okay, because it's nature, right? Like, so nature is a trip. Right? You think everything's gonna be good.
Nature will mess you up.
Will mess you, will slap you upside your head. But nature, as you know, like as we were talking today, I was talking to Chris, and he's like, "You guys didn't call me last night," because we had Dan and Matt. And then we had myself jumping on about 2:30. We had Mason here. We know Joan. We're all out. We're talking to people. It was great.
Yeah, I think you made Chris feel a little left out.
Well, but as Chris said, he had everything ready. He's like, I got everything ready. So I'm ready. And he goes, you guys didn't call. But he said, I didn't get any rain. There was nothing. I mean, I didn't get hit with anything. Where you got woken up, what time did you get woken up?
3:30.
That's not good. That is not good. You don't want to be woken up.
And that was by a warning siren.
Well, see, I'm like Chris. I live in Murfreesboro, and we didn't hear a darn thing. I mean, not much of anything.
Yeah. See, it's so Chris is like because nobody.
Well, I'm in Madison, so that's the opposite end of the spectrum. That's North Nashville.
So let me ask you this: how many of those went off?
It only once, but it kept going for a good 15 minutes.
Okay, so when it happens, Bell, what is your first instinct?
To curse that I woke me up?
No, but like is your first instinct to cover, run for shelter? Jay, what's your first instinct? Because for me, it's like, oh, we should probably run for shelter. At the same time, I want to go look outside.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You know, they say stay away from windows, but what do? You go look out the window.
You go look out the window. If they told me to go look out the window, I might go, oh, that's probably not good. No, but that's your first instinct. Do you have a plan? I mean, do you guys have plans just in case?
No.
Yeah, my wife and I do. It's like grab each other and a cat and go to the interior rooms.
The first thing I did
down.
was take the cat carriers out of the closet just in case I needed to go downstairs to the basement area and have them with me. But literally, I was just like, all I want to do is go back to bed.
That's it.
This is not the crisis that it seems to be in my own head, even though it's as dangerous as any other weather event, you know. And my whole attitude was I just want to go back to sleep. Well, that would have paid off pretty poorly for me if we'd been hit by a tornado.
It would have. But you know, if you don't, like, it's a really interesting thing because when it finally hits the fan and something like this takes place, it's like, do you have a plan? What is your plan? Because that, you know, as Jay and I were talking about, your first instinct is to kind of go look out the window because you want to see, but it's dark, which is also the other thing. Because we've had a few of these since I've been here, and it's always dark.
Well, when I got woken up, you were talking, and it was about how it was just basically a wall of water coming down.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And when I looked out the window, I saw exactly what you were talking about because it was a wall of water coming down.
It was Mother Nature. Somebody says it always wins for sure. So Dan, right? Dan's all, I don't see anything. Hey, Mason and Chad, you guys go outside. Mason, you go out on the veranda out here and you look outside. You'll be fine. We got everything. And Chad, you go back outside. So I went outside, and it was weird too because the wall of water, it wasn't just like it started coming down. It was literally a wall that was moving this way, and it got to the point where it was so thick, it was like fog. And I was like, it was hammering it down. And when it wasn't, the first couple times I went outside, I was telling Dan, the eerie thing was, it was the silence. There was no wind whatsoever. There was humidity. There was no thunder, but it was a light show. And I said, it's that odd kind of, feels like the calm before something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, before I went to bed, I had gone out onto our porch, and I was amazed at how comfortable it felt as far as the temperature.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was warm. It didn't feel like it was cold. It just felt completely neutral, and I was like, that feels weird.
It feels weird, right?
Yeah.
Like feels odd. Some of you chiming in. Dickinson County, tornado warnings all night. Anonymous sheriff says, break out your tornado helmets. That was funny because that was one of the things that I think it was Fox or whoever we were flipping around last night. They're like, go into an interior room or go into your wherever. And then it said, wear a helmet. Like, where am I getting a helmet?
I don't do that when I'm on a bike or a skateboard or rollerblades. Why would I do that during a tornado?
Yes, us guys did listen to the tsunami denier. That was him. You know, speaking of tsunami, there's a video out there of a couple American dudes who are caught up in the earthquakes in I don't know where they are. They're Singapore. I think they're playing basketball over there. And as the earthquake hits, the one guy goes, oh, my God, this is a tsunami. The other guy's like, it's an earthquake, fool. It was not a tsunami. It was not.
One causes the other, but one is not the other.
Yes, one is not the other. It's an earthquake. The other, it's funny because even and they're up high. They're up on like the 30 or 40th story, and you could see it swaying. And the one guy just looked at him and was like, dude, are you this stupid? It is not a tsunami. It is an earthquake. Speaking of earthquakes / tsunamis, Donald Trump speaking about the Day of Liberation.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable. The thing that people have to talk about, we're up almost to $7 trillion of investment coming into our country, and you'll see how it's going to turn out. Our country's going to boom.
We'll see. I would like to think so. And the $7 trillion, it all sounds good. It's, I'll cash, once the check's clear, that matters because a lot of times, these things are over a decade or so. It's not like they just hand $7 trillion over. And especially when it comes to the chips, the chips is a wonderful thing. It's one of the few things that Biden did was the CHIPS Act, which is great. And then Trump put it on, supercharged it, put it on meth. Boom, away it went. And it's great. But it's going to take a while. Even now, there's been delays with the building out there in Surprise of the Taiwanese chip manufacturer because these things take time. We build in such a way because of regulations, because of all of these things. It takes a lot longer than a lot of other places, and that's one of the things that we have when it comes to tariffs and building things back here, setting up the manufacturing thing that I think he's talking about. I got to be honest with you, I think a lot of that's a pipe dream just because the amount of time it would take to set up. These aren't, let's flip a switch and away we go. This is, to build, I went through a thing today, to build the iPhone here, to build the whole thing here, 5 to 7 years to get the plant up and running, probably 7 to 10 years before they're rolling off of the production line to build the iPhone here. Think about that for a second. That is, now imagine that with other things. That's the iPhone. So to have all of those things manufactured and built here, that is, you and I know we can't wait 10 years to get the markets moving and things moving in the right direction. That's not going to happen. Vast majority of these are going to go away in the next several weeks because they'll negotiate, we'll negotiate, we drop, they drop, we get some stuff we want. It's going to be a helper. How many jobs come back? Again, that's going to be an interesting, thought. I would like to think some do, but also there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee that jobs are coming back in a day and age of robots. I'm a robot. In a day and age of improving with AI, not everything that may be back manufactured here is going to be built by human beings. It may be overseen by a few, but instead of 2,000, you may have 200. And so, is this thought of, as I've said, this factory, we're really building the Rust Belt, and here we go, and it's, the whistle goes off at 3 and dad comes home with his lunch pail. I just don't think that's where we're going. It's, can we even it out in certain areas? The battle, though, is going to be with China. That's the battle that is absolutely going to be the beast. It's going to be with China, because this is more than just tariffs and leveling a playing field, and it is more than just that. This is a world where they would like to be the dominant one, and this is a world where we're like, no, we're still the dominant one, and we can survive without you. It would suck. You can't survive without us.
Well, I think you have to sort of understand how things work. When tariffs come into place, foreign goods may become a little more expensive, but domestic goods do not. So if you're looking at Poland Springs water versus, something, let's say, Fiji water, the Poland Springs is not going to be more expensive. So for the first time in your lives, you're going to actually think about the Americans who make the products, the Americans who produce these products and work in these factories. It's time for us to take care of them instead of taking care of.
Which is, that sounds great. No, water. That should be. I'm still fascinated by the fact that we buy water in a bottle from a store. We have so many ways we can get water out of our faucet and make it better.
Oh, stop sounding like an old man and let me borrow a can of that air.
Was it Nestle? That's where they make most of their money, and their pretend water.
That's going to be the next thing that we do as a dumb society, is buy air in a can.
That'd be kind of. Don't they have that? Don't you have those places? Those oxygen bars.
Yeah, but I'm talking about walking into a 7-Eleven and getting a can of air. That's something we would do as a society.
That would be. Don't give. Somebody's going to do it now. Somebody's sitting there. That's Bell's idea. That's Bell's Air. You're going to want to go there and make sure you use my code. Oh, my Lord. Dana Bash.
And it is banking on something that is very unknown, which is the idea that the manufacturing that he hopes will come back actually will across the United States. This is a very different time than the last time manufacturing was booming in the United States of America. Everybody in America wants Americans to have jobs that they enjoy, and we just don't know the answer to that.
We don't know the answer to that. And the frustration is it's an experiment in some ways to see who can hold out the long, who's going to blink first, which person's going to make that move, who's the one that's going to blink. But it's more than just that. And we're going to break down some of what it is and what may be the biggest obstacle if this was to be prolonged. And it has nothing to do with China or tariffs. It has all to do with us. Talk about that. We also got, remember, the weather. It's going to be nasty out there again today. How bad will it be? Well, nature will decide that later on when nature wants to tell us. But make sure you download the app. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and get the alerts when things get a little wacky and crazy out there or get violent and awful, and you need to know what's happening. We will be here all night if need be. God willing, we're not, but the reality is, based on what may be coming, that is a possibility. That includes Dan, myself, Chris, Matt, Jay, Bell, Mason. Everybody will be here ready to roll and give you all the information up to date about what's happening out there. This is the Chad Benson Show at Super Talk 99.7. Rough Greens. Here's something that's not going up in price. And right now you can get a free Jumpstart trial bag of Rough Greens. All they ask you to do is cover the cost of shipping. And this is for your dog. It's a 1 scoop a day right on top of your dog's food. Living enzymes, and it's just amazing. Probiotics, all this incredible stuff. Here's why you want to try this. First, it's great for your dog. You're going to love it, what it does for them. They're going to love the taste. But over the next 90 days, they have a 90-day challenge. It starts out like this. First 30 days, shinier coat, more energy. Day 60. You're going to notice that energy level up. Mobility in their joints is better because less inflammation. Why? Because of that 1 scoop a day with those living enzymes and better immune system. By day 90, coat full, less shedding, heart health's improved, and you're starting to notice that they've got tons of mobility that maybe, especially if they're older, they didn't have before. Try a Jumpstart trial bag of Rough Greens today. Don't have to worry about the cost. They're going to give it to you free. It's a $20 value. They just ask that you cover the cost of shipping. Go to roughgreens.com. It's ruffgreens.com. Use my code Chad. Take the 90-day challenge with them. Watch what happens to your dog. ruffgreens.com. Use my code Chad.
More severe weather in the forecast. We'll keep you posted. And you may have heard tornado sirens last night where you live, and maybe you should have heard some, but you didn't. Well, we'll explain why. We'll have those stories and more at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We'll be here if indeed it pops off, which is a possibility that it could pop off tonight weather-wise. And I heard sirens last night. There was no doubt about that. They was loud. They're very loud. And that's a good thing. You want that. And I'm sure there's people who slept right through it. Had no idea what was going on. And it was just the way it moved last night, too, was very interesting. Matt and I were talking about it stalled. And it almost like it felt like the angry part of the storm just kind of rinse and repeated. It would pick up some steam and then it would die down again. And then they would take off the tornado warnings and they would come back. And it was kind of the same areas being hit over and over again. Just the way that happened was crazy. And it'll be interesting to see tonight what happens. Hopefully nothing but some sprinkles. But judging by what I'm seeing, I don't think that is going to be true. No. The interesting thing about what's happening with tariffs is it's not just about making them pay. It's not about that. There's more to fixing this problem, if indeed you see it as a problem. It's also about us. A long time ago, we decided, let's export ideas. We'll import cheap goods, and we'll go from there. And we've done that. And we've consumed. And a lot of the stuff that we, would just be not, at this point in time, it's cost prohibitive to try to do some of this stuff. There's no reason for us to do some of these things because it just wouldn't be worth it. It would be way too expensive for things like socks or T-shirts or some of these other stuff. It's the disposable goods. Even, televisions are so cheap. There's a reason, like I said, the things that we need are far more expensive. Things we want and stuff that's disposable, they're cheap. And we became addicted to that. So it's not just about making some people pay and the battle with China that is a lot more than just the tariff side of stuff. It is also about our consumption. We have an addiction to cheap goods. And the thought of we're going to do all this and we're going to bring back this manufacturing, we bring back this, well, that's also going to be predicated on how we react. Because if we say, nah, you know what? We don't like this. We're angry. The pendulum starts to swing back. The market stays down. And we say we want our cheap goods. We're not going to wait 5-10 years for plants to be built here. That's an issue. And in politics, as I explained it earlier, when you have an intervention, you go in there and you read off something, Dear Bell, I really love you. Think you're a swell guy, but you're taking too much oxygen and you think you're addicted to it. So you need to go to an oxygen detox center or whatever. Well, somebody going to detox or to rehab, how you feel about, helping that person get in there is one thing, thinking this is going to be great. But if politics says, dude, you better get that guy out of here. Things aren't good. We need him back out here. You don't do that with somebody who's in rehab. Oh, the politics says I got to get you back out here. That's the frustration part because politics is going to play a role in all of this. And so is our consumption. And as long as we continue to consume the cheap goods, and it's hard not to, we've become very price conscious. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I can buy something that is as good quality-wise as something else at a quarter of the price, why wouldn't you? Well, if it's made in the USA. The made in the USA thing is also at times a farce because not everything's – it's funny that it may be assembled in the USA, but made here, it may be made in 10 other places. So that's also a tough thing to get past. It can be frustrating. I mean, we'd all like to know that everything's made in the USA and it's all wonderful. It's far more complicated than that. And the Democrats are loving this. They go out there and say, we're so upset and prices are going to go up. And they're laughing and they're hoping all of that happens. They're praying that happens because they understand who's going to get stuck with the bill come midterms. It's going to be the Republicans. And Trump understands that. And I do believe that Europe and the rest of the globe is going to capitulate with a lot of stuff. China's a totally different story. And what's their appetite? What's the appetite of any of these countries? I mean, if Europe and China and everybody got together and said, screw it, we're just going to take America head on and Trump digs in, then we could be in for a wild ride. And then it goes back to the individual, you, me, on how we feel about this, because that will tell. And if the markets slow down and the markets start to fall off and the Republicans and Trump start getting the blame, what happens is they get worried. They start to panic because they see midterms and they see themselves losing their jobs. And then Trump would be saddled with Democrats being able to make his last 2 years a nightmare. So there's a lot that goes into us. And yes, our consumption is a part of it. And yes, Bill, there's a lot of people already saying they already have oxygen in a can.
It's like sometimes it's not even worth it to try to crack the joke.
No, it's not. It is. That's not huffing, though, right? We're not huffing. You're not talking about huffing?
No, I'm talking about like in Spaceballs when they would crack open a regular can that had air in it. Not compressed air and not medical air. I'm talking about air in a can like in Spaceballs.
Okay, there you go. We get that. I know sarcasm sometimes is people don't understand it, like what
Look,
we
if
say.
it's coming out of my mouth, it's sarcastic.
Absolutely. That's the number one thing you should think about. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about Adolescence, that show that is out on Netflix, why it's garnering so much attention, the uniqueness of it, and also some of the crap that's not being talked about that should be, because they're pushing a narrative in a certain way. Doesn't mean the show's bad, but we're going to discuss it. We'll do that straight ahead. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
Good afternoon. It's 2:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, a complete forecast. And boy, the weather's in the top of the news. But anyway, we'll have that forecast for you here shortly. Forecasters are saying that round 2 of severe weather and heavy rain, the chances will increase through today and to about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. All modes of severe weather are indeed possible. A tornado watch has already been issued by the National Weather Service for most of our listening area until 10 p.m. tonight. Middle Tennessee also under an enhanced risk level for areas along and west of I-65, and a slight risk to marginal risk elsewhere in Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. There is a concerning risk for strong tornadoes for areas west of I-65. And the hail, you may have already seen some of these stories. You've had parts of Coopertown, for example, had hail about 2 inches in size, and there's still the possibility for that with the remaining storms that are due to come through. News Channel 5 reports the Nashville Office of Emergency Management said that tornado warnings for the outside sirens had issues last night for the extended threat of severe weather. The management said that the batteries were drained after the sirens went off so many times from warnings from the National Weather Service. And once those batteries drained, the sirens quit working. In areas where there were power outages, the sirens didn't start to recharge until the electricity came back on. That makes sense. The power is now back on in those areas. Let's go ahead and take a look at traffic here a little earlier than we normally do. First of all, 40 westbound before Hermitage Avenue. The right lane is blocked there due to a crash. We've also got an injury accident, Murfreesboro Pike at Franklin Limestone Road. And we are still seeing where parts of Briley Parkway, especially between 24 and Murfreesboro Road, are still blocked off. There's still some standing water there, still some flooding on that stretch of Briley Parkway, so please make note of that. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
I want to talk to you about Byrna Technologies. They're amazing. So imagine this, having a launcher. It looks like a gun. You can carry it anywhere. There's no background check, nothing like this. It is CO2 filled, and it is incredible, and it's got stopping power. And I want you to check them out. They're right here in Franklin, and get over and see them. And it's a great way if you're somebody like me. I am a 2A fanatic. I love it. This is a great way for you to practice and train. The feel is amazing. And it's about something that's less lethal, but you can carry it all the time. Just because it's less lethal doesn't mean it doesn't have the stopping power. And on top of that, you can go over there and actually work with the launchers in their store, and it's amazing. It is incredible to work with. It almost feels as if you're shooting the real things, but you can practice, and that's important for a lot of people out there because you don't have practice time. It's a great way to introduce people to something that maybe they have a fear of. So Byrna right here in Nashville, they're in Franklin. They're at 3300 Mayfield Drive. That is D3 in Franklin. Now call them, go see them. You get 10% off They're open 7 days a week. Check out the range. It's a free range with the burner launchers, and all you have to do is bring a CO2 or they've got some for sale there. Call 615-558-0534. 615-558-0534 for burner. Oh, kids. What is my spot here? I don't know. I've got so many of them. Birch Gold. Oh, my God. Do you guys want gold? I don't have any, but my gold company that I work with does. They're called Birch Gold. Text the word Benson to 989898 today. And let me tell you about why gold. You see what's going on? Unsteady market. People a little nervous. They're going to get you an investor kit, an info kit, and let you take a look at what it is they do. Gold's been around forever, and smart money, and I mean smart money, has been moving to cash and then heading over to gold, especially when it comes to go look what the big fund managers are doing. Go look at what all the banks are doing because they understand that there's a lot of uncertainty out there and you want to protect your future and you want to protect today. And gold will help you with that. Birch will help you with that. Get the info kit today. Text the word Benson to 989898 today to get your free info kit. Tell them I sent you for Birch Gold. That's Benson. You text to 989898 today. Oh, man, I tell you what. I was looking at some of the radars. I'm thinking it's going to be ugly tonight. It's going to be ugly for the next 3 or 4 days. And it's bumming because Jack's out here. So my son's out here, right, from California, where it's like 72 degrees and sunny all the time. And he's having a great time. But we were going to go golfing tomorrow afternoon. I was taking the day off, and we had some stuff planned. And it's just like, what are we going to do, you know? Probably go over to Burn and shoot a little bit. But still, the nightmare that may be coming, because you think, you know, you got through today, and you think, and I'm like, man, another opportunity for this weather to come here? Yeah, I'll have a hard pass. Not that I don't mind the rain, but the nightmare tornado warnings, yeah, well, I'll pass on those. But keep it here. We're going to have you covered throughout. Make sure you download the app, but also like and subscribe on YouTube. And the reason is simple, because we'll let you know when we're going live. And if we're going live at like 8:30 at night, there's something, either something huge politically has happened or weather. I've never talked so much weather, ever. Because when I was in Arizona, we don't talk about? It's hot. We know it's hot. That doesn't change. But here, Bell, what is up with this, man? I thought I was promised we're going to have 4 seasons. I didn't know one of the seasons was going to be me not getting any sleep.
No, that's year round.
Well, that's true. I don't get any sleep. No sleep whatsoever. I'm a weird duck. So last night I came in right about 7:15 and I hung out with Matt and Weber, and we were, okay, what's going to happen? And you could see that it was slowing down, so I wasn't going to get here in time for us to really do anything, because everybody headed home. And I fell asleep. I got home and I started watching this show called Adolescence, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I'm sitting around and I'm like, all right, I'm finally getting ready to go to bed. So I head off to bed. And within a few hours, it started going wacky. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then I was up and I couldn't sleep because the alarms are going off and the sirens are going off and the thunder was shaking the place. And so that's when I jumped in at like 2:30 with Dan and Matt, and we left Chris out. But that wasn't because we didn't love Chris. We just thought, well, you know what? We got this right now. But it was, as I said earlier, there's this instinct to run to the window when they tell you take shelter. It's like you don't want to know that something's come, but you want to see. It's like Godzilla. If I knew Godzilla was walking down the street and he might step on my building, so I should get to shelter, I still want to kind of look at Godzilla. Don't you? Don't you want to go, what's Godzilla look? Oh my God, it's real. But at night, you really can't see anything, and that was an issue for sure. I was watching a TV show called Adolescence. If you don't know what it is a show on Netflix. It's the biggest show in the world right now, and it is riveting, a little frightening, a little preachy, fascinating, sucks you in, and it's a lot about the manosphere and toxic masculinity, and it's about I don't want to give too much away because several of you are saying you started to watch it, but it's about a young boy in England who is arrested for killing a classmate, essentially. And it's how this whole thing starts and delves deep into everything from the parents to the school to the internet to so many different topics. But a lot of it is about the incels and all of these kind of things. This is Keir Starmer talking about it. He's the Prime Minister of the UK.
There's toxic masculinity and there's also toxic feminism. So what would you say toxic feminism is? Toxic feminism is probably a hate towards men, believing they're all violent creatures.
You take a man and then you say all men are this. It's rubbish.
I think it's quite unjust because they kind of, especially in media now, they're very much kind of like classing all men as this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And that people need to understand that that's a very small portion of people.
It is. That was people talking about the masculinity of the kids. I can't see because the lights are so blind here. But one of the things I wanted to bring up today about this is the thing about toxic masculinity. The manosphere is one of the things they talk about. The incels and all of these things they talk about. I bring this up because what's not being brought up is a society that is geared everything towards boss woman, girls, from education to higher education to so many other things now. They've become a place for women to strive and for men to essentially be blamed for everything, as if there is no such thing as toxic people or toxic women. And that's what those kids are bringing up. And it's important that we talk about that because that's just as important as toxic men. Are there toxic men out there in masculinity? Yes. Are there the Andrew Tates of the world who I find revolting? Are they helping? No. Do they play on the fact that there are young men who feel like they've been blamed for everything in society and they're hunting for something and they turn to somebody like Andrew Tate, which is not something you want? Hell no, do I want that. Quite the opposite. but they feel like they have nowhere else to go. They feel like they've been blamed for everything, and women are blaming them for everything. And society is saying that you are bad and that you are the reason for the thunder, the lightning, the global warming, the financial crisis. You're all of the things that are wrong with the world. And that you go back to, the 30s and 40s and 50s and that, that's how men still treat women today, and that's not true. But what we've done is as women have uplifted themselves, which is a wonderful thing. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is somewhere along the line, it wasn't about being equal. It was about being better. It became a competition. And that's the frustrating thing in this. There's never a lot about that in this. It's always about how the manosphere is, how the Andrew Tates and the right wingers and there's a lot of that, like people looking to Trump. Yeah, overwhelmingly young men went for Trump. Why? Because he doesn't demean them. He doesn't tell them they're horrible. He doesn't tell them being a man is a bad thing. Ask any woman if there's toxic femininity. They'll tell you, hell yeah. You know what this is really called? Toxic people. Everybody's known toxic people. Everybody has. And we need to talk about it all. Look, men, we have failed children. There's no doubt. Society has not helped. They've neutered men, and they've made men irrelevant. And to get to a place where there's healthy men, we've got to lead. But that also means that, hey, you know what? You being strong, masculine, and a man isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's a great thing. But because you're a woman, if you feel that, all men are bad and evil, especially a young group of women now, and this is where society's going to have a real issue, is super left. 20s and 30s young women who are single are uber progressive. They've passed the point of being Democrats. They're now uber progressive. And young men tend to be a little bit more libertarian and right-leaning. And now you have a world where we're not talking, we're not reproducing, and men feel like I've got to overcompete just to get you to pay attention to me, which isn't helpful at all. This is very interesting. Scott Gallo talking about how hard it is for a man to get a date, even on something like Tinder, an average-looking man.
I read that on Tinder, a man of average attractiveness has to swipe right 200 times to get one coffee, and then 4 of those 5 coffees will ghost him. They will decide they don't want to meet him or they won't show up. That means a guy of average attractiveness has to swipe right 1,000 times to get one coffee. Now, what does that tell that guy? Women don't value me. Women make me feel rejected. And then they go online and they see these misogynists telling them it's not your fault. And these men become much more prone to misogynistic content, much more prone to nationalistic content, blaming other people for the lack of economic opportunity. They start sequestering from society. I worry that we are literally evolving a new species of asexual, asocial male. And if a man by the age of 30 hasn't either lived with someone or married someone, there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to have a substance abuse problem.
That is scary. And as we become more technologically advanced and people are easily able to go into porn and watch that and to distance themselves because they're so angry over the fact that they feel like they're not getting respect. And you know what? You shouldn't ask a woman to lower their standards at all. But if your standards are, and they talk about this in the show, that, and this is life in general, but 80% of the women want 20% of the men, and that's actually even less than that now. It's probably 80% of the women want about 5% of the men, and they demand certain things. And they, with the education system the way it is, especially at higher education, women now are dating even less because they also look over and say, well, you don't have an education. Even though you may make more money and your hands are dirty, you're not educated enough for me. There's a lot of issues out there, but there's toxicity in all human beings. And I feel like as great as this show is and as interesting, it's also paints a picture that's very bleak with young men. Yeah, we should pay attention to it, but I think there's a lot of overreaction to it as well. We'll wrap it up. Matt, Big Weather Murphy, straight ahead. It is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Matt Monsoon joining the program. It's our weather name. Somebody said, you guys need cool weather names. Yeah, we do.
I'm trying to think what rhymes with Benson.
That's a good one, right?
Maybe alliteration. Hello, Chad.
Hurricane Benson and Matt Monsoon.
What's going on?
With Bell Tsunami. Man, it was crazy last night.
It was, and you wake up today to try to figure out what in the hell actually happened. I mean, I used to spit the bit on this a lot because I get frustrated when they're screaming tornado warning and then it turns out that the thing never touched the ground. But several years ago, I realized that we need to embrace the technology that we have, right? And yes, there are going to be instances where, we call tornado warning that goes over any particular area and it's not there because it's not on the ground. But I think that's preferable to the alternative, which is you don't know until it hits your house.
Yeah. Well, damned if you do and damned if you don't,
That's right.
Like, if you don't say something, people are like, why didn't you say something? If you do say something and it doesn't happen, they're like, well, I'm not going to listen to you anymore if you're going to be like that.
Well, and I think people have come to understand, the difference between. I like to make the distinctions, and I wish the National Weather Service or someone in charge would do this officially. Like tornado watch. That means, hey, next couple of days y'all need to watch out, right? That's what that means. And next couple of days conditions are good. Tornado warning. Hey, there's something going down. Now that we have all of this radar technology, what about a tornado emergency? That means tornado is on the ground.
Yes.
So hey. Wherever it might be. Hey, Leapers Fork. Hey, Franklin, you are in a tornado emergency. That means that there's no question about, Now, the reason that
100% support that.
The reason that they say they don't do it, though, and I've talked to people at the National Weather Service about this, that they fear that people will start dismissing tornado warnings.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? They'll say, well, if it's not an emergency, then, whatever.
Only tell me when it's absolutely next to my house.
Right.
It looks like tonight is going to be another one of those nights, potentially.
I know. And we'll be here. I mean, obviously, we do not take delight in being on the radio at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, but we were and we will be. I say that, but in all seriousness, it's what makes radio different. It is what we hope helps us embrace ourselves to the community, and we consider it to be one of our utmost community services.
It's an honor to be able to do that, and to know that you're doing a service like that out there, even for some of the people who get mad at us. It's a wonderful thing. And the fact that you guys are out there too, because we know a lot of truckers today and stuff, letting everybody know. Because once people think, well, the tornado warnings are gone, but the flash floods, that insanity was some of the was it the 440 and 65 where there was it was a pond.
Yeah, it was a massive.
You could have gone and just taken your boat across. It was insane.
Well, and you said something on the way in that I don't think people realize we get so regionalized. I mean, I grew up in the state of Georgia. I lived in Alabama for 20 years. I lived briefly in the Northeast and a couple of other places around the country, but I've lived primarily in the Southeast. And you're accustomed to it. I've never been through an earthquake.
Yeah.
So if I went out to California, like you lived in California for years, and you've been through probably plenty of earthquakes, and it's like, this is what happens. This is what happens. It's kind of not, you're probably not used to it, but you're used to it.
Yeah.
And you said, what is going on with this weather? I'm like, man, welcome to Tennessee, baby. Let's go.
I expected it in, like May, June, because we get the monsoon season now.
Right.
And I would tell you, we got hit with a cell a couple of years ago in Arizona. We had just bought a brand new, it was like a 600-pound barbecue. This cell hit so hard, it picked the barbecue up, threw it, and crashed into our house, just busted the house all to hell, and it ripped all the poles out. And we actually had to stay in a hotel for 5 days because they couldn't get the power back on out there. I've been through some weather, but this was like, it was the noise. It was like, I'm up again. How many alarms do we get? And my daughter's like, there's an Amber Alert going off. I'm like, it's not an Amber Alert. It's tornado. Didn't kidnap anybody.
But you nailed it, and you only experience these moments, probably a few times in your life. But you nailed it, and then I went outside and experienced the same thing in Mount Juliet that you experienced in Nashville. It's like, okay, it's not raining. The wind is insane. The sky is insane. The clouds are insane. And I'm in a moment where I feel like I'm in a movie, and at any second, I'm going to see the tornado.
That's it, yes. Like I'm waiting for the lightning to be big enough that I can see my God, it's too late.
And that was the atmosphere for about 2.5 hours last night.
Yeah, it was definitely. And I think we're going to get a little bit of that again. So we're going to have some more rain and stuff tomorrow, but I think we're going to get some of that tonight.
Well, I mean, I don't make this joke because obviously this is a tragedy. We've got people dead in the state of Tennessee, but at least we're not talking about tariffs. Huh?
No, that's it.
I mean, if there's a little silver lining.
I know. We talked about fentanyl earlier, and I'm like, thank God, let's talk some fentanyl.
But we will veer off the weather talk today. I've got Lee Reeves of the General Assembly coming on to talk about why he thinks it's important to insist on primaries in the state of Tennessee. And then a little bit later on, we're going to talk about vaping and taxing the vapors.
Oh, tax. That's all straight ahead with Monsoon Matt. Oh, yeah. Have a good one, boys.